Hello, welcome back. In this video, we will study the third act of Macbeth. From the first two acts, we know that Macbeth and Banquo met three weird sisters. They were witches and they made prophecies about Macbeth and Banquo. They told them that Macbeth will become the king of Scotland. And Banco, though he will not become the king of Scotland, but his sons will rule Scotland. These prophecies made Macbeth ambitious and he killed Duncan and then became the king. Now, let us move ahead. Banco suspects Macbeth but gains comfort from the second part of the witch's prediction that his own children will be kings. Having announced his intention to go riding with Fleance, Banco is persuaded by Macbeth and his wife to return later that evening to their new place at Forest for a special feast. However, Macbeth realizes that the witch's prophecies regarding Banquo represents a threat to his own position. Unable to endure the thought of Banquo's descendants claiming his position, Macbeth summons two hired murderers and confirms with them prior arrangements for the killing of Banquo and Fleance. Banquo's short soliloquy at the beginning of this act and this scene has two purposes. It reminds the audience and the readers of the details of the witch's prophecy in Act 1, and it reveals his own suspicion that Macbeth is Duncan's murderer. Ironically, his tone also recalls the ambitious tone of Macbeth in the earlier scenes. The entry of the hired murderers is a crucial element in the development of Macbeth's character. His use of others to do his dirty work presents him as politically powerful but morally weak. Gone are the days when Macbeth would meet his enemies front to front. Now he must commit murder with the seeming protection of distance. The dialogue of the first part of the scene reveals that Macbeth has met the murderers before, but then and now he must convince them to work on his behalf. It appears that he kindles or rekindles in them a hatred for Banquo. Although Macbeth flatters the murderers by suggesting that the business of Banquo's murder will elevate them above the common rank, his ironic tone reveals that he thinks of them as little more than beasts. Doubly ironic, then, is that this entire speech is admission to himself of his own inhumanity and imperfection. The second scene of the third act begins. This short scene allows the audience once more into the private thoughts of the murderous couple, Macbeth and his wife, Lady Macbeth, while holding the action momentarily in suspense. As the hired killers make their way toward Banquo, Macbeth and his wife meet secretly. His wife attempts to soothe his troubled mind but ironically feels the same doubts herself. Killing the king has provided them with many more difficulties than they first envisioned. To the astonishment of his wife, Macbeth reveals his plans to murder Banquo. Dramatically as well as poetically, this scene precisely mirrors Act 1, Scene 5. Then, Duncan's death was being plotted. Now, the death is Banquo's, although Lady Macbeth is initially unaware of this. In the earlier murder, Lady Macbeth was most in command. In this murder, Macbeth is. Where formerly Macbeth was the one who needed convincing, now the weaker role passes to his wife. Despite Macbeth's personal bravado, neither he nor his wife seems entirely at ease. Lady Macbeth talks of her doubtful joy, and Macbeth of his restless ecstasy. The most powerful moments of the scene are the final ones in which Macbeth calls for the cancellation of the bond between himself and the world. Bond is more than simply a simile from the world of legal jargon. Just as Lady Macbeth earlier wanted to lose her sex, Macbeth now desires to be get rid of his humanity. His direct connection with the natural world into which he was born threatens to keep him pale or fearful. Act 1, Scene 3. The hired murderers meet as arranged. On hearing approaching horses, a signal is given, and Banco and his son Philians are attacked. The murderer's lantern is accidentally extinguished, and the job is left half done. Although Banco is killed, Philians escapes. Appropriately, this scene takes place in the dark. The murderers carry lantern and fail in their duty only when the light is accidentally knocked out and the entire stage is plunged in blackness. The escape of Philians is the turning point or perpetua in Macbeth's tragedy. Banquo's dying words ordering Philians to revenge remind the audience of the witch's prophecy to Banquo that he will be the father to a line of kings, even though he himself will not attain the throne.